motor has to come out of the car. This is second round funny car action. Back at the starting line, Rick Johnson and Roland Leon's famed Hawaiian Dodge Daytona car up against the beautiful Corvette-bodied automobile in the far lane of John Brute Force from Southern California. Now, neither of these drivers has ever scored an NHRA major event victory. But for John Force, it can't be far away. He's been runner-up, in fact, right here at the Cajun Nationals. Rick Johnson earlier this year recorded the quickest elapsed time in the history of funny car racing at 5.58 seconds. The roof hatch opened, Brock Yates, to let a little of that burnout smoke escape.
Yeah, no air conditioning on these babies, Steve. You know, this could be a mighty interesting race. This track is getting very treacherous. The heat's getting higher and higher all the time. We've seen some real sideways motoring in a couple of the other rounds. Peretti and Meyer come to mind. Boy, that was a wild one. And this racetrack could cause some real problems for these guys.
Indeed it could. You know, John Force has been working very hard on his driving. They changed the throttle language on this car before the Cajun Nationals to what they call a long throttle, so it has more travel and more sensitivity down the racetrack. We don't often hear it, Brock, but a lot of times these drivers are on and off that throttle trying to keep those tires hooked up and not smoking.
Well, I would imagine they've made some pretty severe clutch adjustments in these cars because a couple of guys have just gone up and smoke just overpowered the racetrack, as you say, and I would imagine that some pretty serious thoughts gone into clutch adjustments on these race cars.
Well, the clutch on these cars can be as important as the engine, because if the clutch locks up too soon, too much of that 3,000 horsepower goes to the rear tires, and you see them smoke, and that's a very easy way to lose a drag race. They move up the stage. In the near lane is Rick Johnson. In the far lane is John Force. Both cars based in Southern California. You see him tickling those electronic beams. Force, the last to move in. We are ready. Starter Lester Katz will send them on their way. It is John Force off the line first. Rick Johnson near that center line. He did not cross it. John Force is there first by a car length. A 597, 244 miles an hour. And both crews appeared to have guessed right on that clutch. At least they got down the racetrack without any tire smoke. John Force will go to the semifinals.
And proving that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. That was John Force. Rick Johnson, on the other hand, kind of takes the long way around. He goes kind of a curvaceous route out toward the center line, almost crosses it right here. It gets the car straightened out, but at that point, it's Force home by almost a car and a half.
Well, John, did you have to use that long throttle on that victory?
Believe it or not, Steve, didn't have to. The guys coiling them, they had her dialed in. Only thing really happened, and I just had to do a little growing up. Me and Coyle talked about just mental attitude on that start line and the whole thing of concentrating on the race. And after 10 years of standing here with you, I can't believe I'm still learning every day.
Rick Johnson was no easy one.
No, it scares me. The likes of Roland's been doing this a long time. Johnson's tough. He's a good old boy, but he's tough out there, and I'm glad we beat him.
Okay, going to the semifinals. Obviously happy is John Force.
He sure is, Steve, and one of the most dedicated, hard-working funny car racers in the business. The next pairing, a mighty, mighty interesting combination. Oswald versus Bernstein. Bernstein car, an interesting component in there.
That's a computer you're looking at, Brock. And computers are not new to drag racing, but this particular type is revolutionary. And they're really not talking too much about it. They're monitoring a whole lot of functions in that automobile. Something is working because they have won the last 2 races on the circuit. The Gator Nationals and the Southern Nationals hold both ends of the national record, ET and mile an hour. So the crew chief, Dale Armstrong, working with Kenny Bernstein, have got some serious speed secrets in that particular Ford-bodied automobile.
So while Bernstein and crew have definitely found a combination, Oswald and Candies and Hughes, after winning the World Championship, are much like Gary Beck. They have sort of lost the combination. They just can't seem to make that race car work the way it is traditionally run, as we see Leonard Hughes, an old drag racer himself, helping to put that car on the line. But right now, the pressure is definitely on Mark Oswald. Hometown crowd, a crowd that expects this race car to really perform. And so far, it has not been working very well during this entire season. Mark Oswald, world champion, hired gun from Cleves, Ohio, outside Cincinnati in the Candies and Hughes car. Kenny Bernstein and his big story, of course, the computer. Steve looked at it earlier.
One of the reasons why Kenny Bernstein has won the last 2 NHRA national events and holds both ends of the national speed records may be this: under 4 pounds, a little black box. Now, you've probably already guessed it is a computer. Now, we've talked about computers before on his car, but they were big, they were bulky, they wouldn't take the pain and strain of drag racing. This one is bulletproof. This is the actual computer that goes into the car before every run. It is then unbolted out of the car, goes into the trailer where this very simple, inexpensive computer is plugged in. But the data that comes out of the box is anything but simple. There's more than I could even recount to you. It takes 40 readings a second. It tells you the engine RPM every point down the racetrack. It tells them when Kenny shifts from first into high gear. It gives them a complete fuel flow graph. It tells you the shaft speed and the engine speed, so you know the clutch slippage. Just incredible information that soon everybody may be privy to, because they plan to market this unit in all forms of motor racing for under $3,000. Quite a bargain. Dale Armstrong and Kenny Bernstein have really broken some ground here.
What a deal. If they could only get those things to get more than about 0.5 miles to the gallon, they'd really be onto something. Right now, though, Kenny Bernstein and Mark Oswald go to the line.
And you wonder when you buy that computer if you get the same one. You know what I mean, bro?
Well, Kenny is really doing a job. He and that crew have come to a point where they are almost indomitable. This is, anytime you go up against them, it's a David and Goliath act here. And right now, here's David. That is Mark Oswald inside the Candies and Hughes cockpit.
Well, this will be a disappointed crowd if that red car in the near lane can't get to the finish line first. They just live and breathe for that particular machine, and it's not going to happen. It is going to be Kenny Bernstein by a country mile. Oh, boy, he is really going to have them talking to themselves with this one. A 576, 245 miles an hour, when everyone else is stuck in the 6s and the 590s. Bernstein is dominant here.